What is the most you have ever given someone you loved? Your time? Your money? Your heart? Mina Park gave her kidney. And she did it without hesitation, without conditions, without even making him ask twice. She loved him that completely, that quietly, that foolishly. But while she was unconscious on that operating table, while surgeons were stitching her back together, her husband was in another room, signing divorce papers and marrying someone else. The day Mina Park saved her husband's life was the same day he ended hers. She had known Jahun Kang since she was 22 years old. She had loved him through job losses, through debt, through the long cold winters when they ate instant noodles on the floor because the heating had been cut off. She had worked double shifts at the restaurant, carried heavy trays on tired feet, and smiled through every ache because she was building something. A life, a future, a home with a man she believed loved her back. When the doctors said Jahun needed a kidney transplant or he would not survive the year, Mina did not hesitate. She got tested the same afternoon. She was a match. She signed the consent forms with steady hands and a full heart. The night before her surgery, she held his hand in the hospital room and whispered, "I would do this 1,000 times for you." He kissed her forehead and said nothing. She did not know then that silence was already a confession. Mina woke up 6 hours later to a ceiling that smelled like antiseptic and a stillness that felt wrong. Her side throbbed with a deep, unfamiliar pain. She turned her head, expecting Jahun's face. Instead, there was a brown envelope on her bedside table. A nurse who could not meet her eyes. And outside the window, Seoul, bright and indifferent, moving on without her. She opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Petition for divorce. His signature at the bottom.
Clean.
Final. Effortless. Like she had been a chapter he was relieved to close. Mina Park lay in that hospital bed. One kidney less. One husband less. One lifetime of love reduced to a single sheet of paper, and made herself a quiet promise. She would not break. Not here. Not for him. Not ever. She did not know then that somewhere across the city, a man the whole of Korea feared was about to walk into her life and choose her like she was the only thing worth choosing. Mina could not remember the last time she slept through the night. 3 months of early mornings and late nights had turned her body into something that just kept moving, not because it wanted to, but because stopping was not something she could afford. Breakfast shift. Dinner shift. Sometimes the midnight shift when her manager called, and she said yes before he even finished asking. She ate whatever was left over in the restaurant kitchen. She skipped meals when there was nothing left. She stopped checking her own reflection because the tiredness in her eyes scared her a little. But Jahun needed her. So none of that mattered. When the doctor said kidney failure, she felt the words land in her chest like something heavy dropped from a great height. When he said Jahun had less than a year without a transplant, she was already reaching for her bag and asking where she needed to go to get tested. She was a match. Of course she was. She signed the surgery forms alone at a small desk outside the hospital office. Jahun was too weak to come with her that day. She did not mind. She pressed the pen down firmly, signed her name, and folded her copy neatly into her purse like it was nothing more than a grocery receipt. The night before the surgery, she could not sleep. She sat on the edge of their bed in the dark and watched Jahun breathe. In and out. Slow and steady. She watched his chest rise and fall, and felt something so full and so painful she did not have a name for it. She reached out and touched his face very gently, just her fingertips, just for a second. Careful not to wake him. She whispered, "I've got you." He did not stir. She went into surgery the next morning with his name sitting quietly in her heart like a prayer. She woke up to a white ceiling and a pain in her side so deep it felt like something had been taken from her. Something had. The room was very quiet. She turned her head slowly, expecting his face, expecting his hand, expecting something warm and familiar waiting for her on the other side of the worst morning of her life. There was a brown envelope on the bedside table. A nurse stood near the door, young. She was folding and unfolding the same corner of her uniform, and she would not look up. Mina opened the envelope. Her fingers were still slow from the anesthesia. Petition for divorce. His signature at the bottom. Neat. Certain. Like it had cost him absolutely nothing. She read it once. She read it again. She read it a third time thinking maybe she was still inside the anesthesia and none of this was real. The words did not change. She folded the paper carefully, tucked it under her pillow, closed her eyes, and lay completely still. Because if she moved, even just 1 inch, she knew she would never stop falling. The bus was cold, and Mina sat with one hand pressed flat against her side the whole ride home. The bandage underneath her uniform was still fresh. The doctor had said 2 weeks of rest. He had said no heavy lifting. He had said take it slow. She had nodded at all of it and signed the discharge papers and walked to the bus stop alone because a taxi was money she did not have anymore. She told herself everything would be okay when she got home. She told herself that the whole bus ride, like a quiet song, she kept replaying so the silence could not get in. When she turned the corner of her street, she saw them before she saw anything else. Black bags. 6 of them. Maybe 7. Lined up outside the front door of her apartment building like rubbish, waiting for collection day. She stopped walking. Her brain was slow to understand what her eyes were already seeing. She moved closer, bent down carefully, one hand still on her side, and opened the nearest bag. Her wedding photo looked back at her. Glass cracked across the middle. She opened another one. Her mother's old cookbook. The one with the stained pages and the notes written in the margins in her mother's handwriting. Stuffed into a black bag like it was nothing. Her work uniforms. Her childhood diary. The small clay pot she had made in school at age 9 that Jehun always laughed at but she could never throw away. All of it. Everything. In black bags on the pavement. Then the door opened. A woman stood in the doorway, wearing a silk robe. Long hair loose. Face calm and beautiful and completely unbothered. Behind her, visible through the open door, Jehun sat on the couch. Mina's couch. In Mina's home. He did not stand. He did not look up. He just sat there like a man watching television on a quiet Sunday. The woman looked at the bags. Then at Mina. Then she smiled just a little and said, "Oh, good. You're here to collect your things." Mina did not speak. She picked up the first bag. The pain in her side pulled sharp and mean, but she did not make a sound. She picked up the second bag. Then the third. One by one, slowly, with her teeth pressed together and her eyes looking only at the ground. She did not ask for help. She did not look at Jehun. She did not say a single word to either of them. She carried her whole life to the bus stop in black bags and sat down on the bench with everything around her feet. A little girl sitting beside her with a school bag and pigtails looked up at her, then reached into her pocket and held out a small candy with both hands. Mina took it. Her hands were shaking. And finally, so quietly nobody around her even noticed, one single tear ran down her face. The rooftop room was so small that when Mina stood in the middle of it, she could almost touch both walls without fully stretching her arms. The ceiling had a water stain in the corner that turned dark when it rained. The heater made a clicking sound at night that sometimes worked and sometimes did not. The window overlooked the rooftop ledge and beyond that Seoul. All of it glittering and enormous and completely unbothered by one small woman living at the top of a very old building with very thin walls. It was hers. She paid for it herself. That was enough. She went back to work 11 days after surgery. The doctor had said 4 weeks minimum. She had nodded politely, thanked him, and set her alarm for 5 the next morning. The rent was due. Her savings were almost gone. And nobody was coming to help her. She understood that now in a way she had not understood anything before.
Clearly, completely,
without any softness around the edges. Her first shift back, she dropped a tray because her side pulled sharp when she turned too fast. She picked everything up off the floor herself and kept moving. By the third day, her co-worker, Jisoo, started quietly rearranging the tables so that Mina always ended up with the lighter section. Fewer large groups, fewer heavy orders. Jisoo never said anything about it. She just did it. And Mina never said thank you out loud because she was afraid if she opened that particular door, she would cry in the middle of the lunch rush. So she just worked.
And Jisoo just helped.
And neither of them mentioned it once. At night, Mina made ramen. She made it the same way every time. One small candle on the windowsill. Her mother's old bowl, the one she had rescued from the black bags, set carefully on the ledge. She would sit with her feet tucked under her and eat slowly while Seoul lit up below her like something out of a dream that belonged to someone else. It became a ritual. The candle,
the bowl,
the city, the only quiet part of her day that felt like it was truly hers. She started writing in a small notebook she found in her bag. She did not write about Jihun. She did not write about the hospital or the papers or the woman in the silk robe. She wrote small things. A customer who left a bigger tip than the bill and wrote thank you on the receipt. A orange cat that appeared on the rooftop every Thursday and sat near her door like it was checking on her. The way the Seoul sky turned a strange pink and gold at 5 in the morning just before her shift, when the whole city was still mostly asleep. Small things. Real things. Things that were still good. But some nights the scar ached deep and low, and she would press her hand against it in the dark and talk to herself very quietly. "You're still here. That is enough for today." And then she would close her eyes and try to mean it. It was a Tuesday evening, and the restaurant was having the kind of quiet night where everything moves slow and easy. Mina was wiping down the counter near the back when she heard it. Or rather, she heard the absence of it. The talking stopped. The kitchen sound stopped. Even the low music playing from the old speaker near the door seemed to shrink back into itself. She looked up. The man who walked in did not look left or right. He did not announce himself.
He did not need to.
He simply walked through the door, and the whole room changed around him like air pressure dropping before a storm. He was not the tallest man she had ever seen. He was not loud. He wore dark clothes, and his face was calm and completely unreadable. But something about him made the 2 customers nearest the door quietly gather their coats and leave without finishing their food. The new girl at the register took one look and disappeared into the back. His men came in behind him and filled the surrounding tables without being told, quiet and still as furniture. The man sat down at the corner table, the dim one, the one nobody ever chose. Mina looked around. Every staff member was either frozen or gone. Jisoo had found something very important to do near the storage room. Her manager had not come out of his office. She picked up her notepad and walked over.
She was not brave.
She was not fearless. She was just too tired to add anything else to the weight she was already carrying. Fear felt like something that belonged to a person with more energy than she had left. She stopped at his table and said, "Good evening. What can I get for you?" He looked up. She had expected coldness. She had expected the kind of look that made people step back without knowing why. But what she saw instead was something she recognized without being able to name it. Something heavy sitting just behind his eyes. Something old and tired that had been there a long time. He ordered quietly.
Simply.
Like a man who did not want to take up too much space. She brought his food without fuss and set it down neatly, and left him alone. She was reaching past him to clear the next table when her elbow caught his water glass. It tipped fast. She righted it with one hand before it fell, said sorry once, wiped the small spill clean with her cloth and moved on. She did not make it a big thing. She did not bow 3 times or go pale. She just fixed it and kept working. When she walked away, she did not see the way he watched her go. She did not see the expression on his face that made his right-hand man glance over with quiet surprise. Later his man leaned close and asked, "Should I find out about her?" Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Then, yes. The first strange thing was the landlord. Mr. Beck had been knocking on her door every few days since she moved in. Always about the rent. Always with that tight, unhappy face, and the way he talked to her like she was already a problem he was tired of having. She had been 2 weeks behind, and she knew it, and the knowing sat heavy in her chest every time she heard his footsteps on the rooftop stairs. Then one Tuesday he knocked, and told her not to worry about the late amount. That it was fine. That she could take her time. Mina stood in her doorway and stared at him for a moment. He did not quite meet her eyes. He just nodded once, and went back downstairs like it was nothing. She did not know what to do with that, so she just said thank you and closed the door. The second thing was the man outside the restaurant. She had noticed him before without fully letting herself notice him. The way he stood near the corner after her night shifts, just far enough away to seem like he was waiting for a bus. He made the back of her neck feel strange. Then one Thursday, he simply was not there. And he was not there the next night either. Or the night after that. Gone like he had never existed. The third thing was the groceries. Every Friday morning a bag appeared outside her rooftop door. No note. No name. Just a clean bag sitting neatly against the wall. And not just any food. Her exact favorites. The banana milk she had not bought herself in 4 months because it felt like a luxury she had no right to anymore. The specific brand of crackers her mother used to buy. Ripe tangerines. The good ramen. Not the cheapest kind, the one she actually liked. She asked Jiso on Saturday. Jiso shook her head. She asked Mr. Beck on Sunday. He looked at the wall and said he did not know anything about any groceries. She stood in her small room that evening holding a tangerine and felt something she could not quite name. Not happiness exactly. Something quieter than that. Something that felt like, maybe, just maybe. Across the city, Ryan sat at his desk and read the file again. He did not read things twice. In 10 years of running operations that most people did not know existed, he had trained himself to absorb information the first time and move forward. Reading twice was a waste. Hesitation was a waste. He read Mina Park's file twice. Her medical records. 11 days returned to work. The bank account with almost nothing in it. The divorce petition. Filed 4 days after her surgery. 4 days. He set the file down. Picked it up. Set it down again. His right-hand man said nothing. He had worked beside Ryan for a long time, and he had never seen him read anything twice. He stayed very still and waited. Ryan said quietly, "Make sure nobody touches her." That night he sat at his window for a long time, soul spread out below him cold and bright. He thought about a woman carrying heavy trays 11 days after giving away part of her body for a man who could not even wait for her to wake up. He thought about that for a very long time. He came back on a Wednesday when the restaurant was almost empty. No men this time. No wall of silence filling up the surrounding tables. Just him. Dark coat. Quiet face. He sat down in Mina's section like it was something he had decided on the way over and did not need to explain. He ordered tea. She brought it and was about to walk away when he asked, "Do you like this city?" She stopped. Turned back. He was looking at his cup, not at her, and the question felt genuine. Like he actually wanted to know. She thought about it for a second. Some parts, she said. The early mornings mostly. Before it gets loud. He nodded slowly, like that meant something to him. She should have gone back to work. There were glasses to polish and chairs to wipe down, and a dozen other small things that needed doing before closing. But the restaurant was quiet, and he looked like a man who did not often talk to people without something behind it. And she was tired of silence that had no warmth in it at all. She asked, "Did you grow up here?" "Yes," he said. Then after a pause, "It never felt like home though." "I understand that," she said quietly. He looked up at her then, just for a moment, like she had said something that landed somewhere real. They talked slowly after that. Carefully. The way people talk when they are not used to being heard and are not fully sure yet that it is safe to try. He did not ask about her life, and she did not ask about his. They talked about small things. The way Seoul changed depending on what street you were on. A good noodle place near the east side that neither of them had been to in a long time. The strange comfort of cities at night. It was easy in a way that felt unfamiliar to her. Gentle in a way she had almost forgotten existed. She was reaching across his table to clear an empty glass when her sleeve slipped. She felt the cool air on her scar before she saw his eyes move. Just a flicker. The raised pink edge of it visible for only a second before she pulled her sleeve down hard and fast and took a small step back without meaning to. Her whole body went tight. He did not stare. He did not make a face. He just looked back at his cup and said very quietly, "You don't have to hide it. Scars mean you survived something." Mina stood completely still. Nobody had ever said that to her. Not once. Every person who had seen it looked at her the same way, with a kind of pity that felt like embarrassment on her behalf. Like the scar was proof of something foolish she had done. He said it like it was proof of something else entirely. She looked at him for a long moment. Something behind her eyes shifted. Not falling. Not yet. But leaning. Just slightly. In his direction. She finished her shift without saying much more. When she went to clear his table after he left, she found a plain, white envelope sitting neatly beside his empty cup. No name on it. No note inside. Just money folded clean and flat. She counted it once with shaking hands and then counted it again because the number did not seem real. It was enough to cover everything. Every medical bill. All of it. Gone. She sat down in the empty restaurant after everyone had left and all the lights were low. She pressed the envelope against her chest with both hands and just breathed. In and out. Slow and even. For the first time in a very long time, the silence around her did not feel like something cold. It felt like someone was in it with her. Mina heard them before she saw them. Loud laughter. The kind that does not care who else is in the room. She looked up from the table she was setting and felt her stomach drop all the way to the floor. Sua walked in like she owned every place she ever entered. 3 friends behind her. Designer bags swinging. Faces bright and careless. They took the large table in the middle of the restaurant, the worst possible table for Mina because it was right in the center of her section and there was no way around it. Mina put down the forks she was holding, straightened her back, and walked over. Sua looked up slowly when she arrived. Took her time letting her eyes travel up from Mina's shoes to her face. Then smiled the way a person smiles when they're already enjoying something. "Oh," she said. "You still work here." Mina took out her notepad. "Good afternoon. Are you ready to order?" What followed was 20 minutes that felt much longer. Sua ordered elaborately, asking questions about every item, changing her mind twice, requesting things that were not on the menu. When the food came, she sent her plate back once because the soup was too hot, and then again because it was not hot enough. Mina carried both plates back without a word. Then Sua started talking. Loudly. Clearly. The way people talk when they want to make sure everyone around them can hear. She told her friends about Mina like Mina was not standing 2 feet away. How Jaehoon had been so sick. How his poor little wife had given him a kidney because there was nobody else. She put one hand on her chest like it was almost touching. She actually gave him her kidney. Can you imagine? She paused for effect. And he still left. Her friends laughed. One of them covered her mouth. Another shook her head slowly with a smile that was not kind at all. Sue looked at Mina then. Her eyes dropped deliberately to Mina's stomach. She let the silence sit for a moment before she said, "Does it hurt? Carrying all these trays with only one kidney?" The restaurant had gone completely quiet. Every person at every table was still. Jisoo had stopped moving near the kitchen door. Even the sounds from the back had gone small. Mina stood perfectly still, hands clasped in front of her, face completely calm. She did not cry. She did not speak. She did not look away. She simply stood and waited like a woman who had already survived worse than this and knew it. Sua held her gaze for a moment, then waved her hand slowly, the way you wave away something small and unimportant. "We've changed our minds, actually. We're leaving." They gathered their bags and walked out still laughing. Not one of them left anything on the table. Mina cleared every cup and glass they had touched, wiped the table clean, finished the rest of her section, clocked out at the end of her shift, walked through the kitchen and out the back door into the narrow alley behind the restaurant. The cold hit her face immediately. She pressed her hand flat against her scar through her uniform and stood there, not crying, not moving, just breathing, in and out. The cold air sharp in her lungs. The alley quiet and ugly and real around her. She stood there for 10 minutes. Then she went back inside. And she mopped the floor. He came on a Tuesday morning when the restaurant was mostly empty. Mina was refilling the sugar holders at the counter when the door opened, and she looked up out of habit. Her hands went still for just 1 second. Then she finished what she was doing and set the sugar down and picked up her notepad. Jaehoon looked different, thinner. The collar of his shirt was loose in a way that looked less like style and more like a man who had lost weight he had not meant to lose. The easy way he used to carry himself, that comfortable confidence that had once made her feel safe standing next to him, was quieter now, dimmer, like something that used to shine but had been left out too long. He sat down at a table in her section. She was almost certain it was on purpose. She walked over. He spoke before she could, told her she looked well, said it warmly, like they were old friends who had simply lost touch. He told her he hoped she had been taking care of herself, that he hoped she had moved on and found some peace. He said all of it slowly and carefully, like he had practiced the words on the drive over. Then he leaned forward slightly and lowered his voice. He said people were talking, that someone had noticed her spending time around a man like Ryan Han, that this kind of attention was not good for a person like her, that the world Ryan moved in was dangerous and she did not understand what she was getting close to. He said he was only telling her because he still cared about what happened to her, that despite everything he still thought about her well-being. He sat back when he finished, hands folded on the table, eyes on her face, waiting for something worry maybe, or gratitude, or the old version of her that used to soften whenever he gave her even the smallest piece of his attention. Mina listened to every single word. She did not interrupt. She did not shift her weight or look away or let anything move across her face. She just listened until he was completely finished and the table was quiet. Then she reached for the water jug, poured him a glass slowly and carefully, set it down in front of him without a sound. And for the first time since the hospital, she looked directly into his eyes. She said, "I gave you a kidney, Jaehoon. I have absolutely nothing left to give you. Not my time, not my attention, not even my anger." She put her notepad in her apron pocket, And she walked away. She did not look back. Not once. That evening, Jehun was at his desk when his assistant knocked and came in holding a document with both hands and a careful expression. A formal government audit notice. Effective immediately. He read it twice. Then his phone rang. His chief investor. The call was short and very clear. They were pulling out. No explanation given. Jehun put the phone down and sat very still. He called 3 people he trusted. The first did not answer. The second did not answer. The third picked up and said only, "I can't help you with this one," and ended the call before he could respond. He sat alone in his office for a long time after that. He did not yet understand why. Sua had been planning this evening for 4 months. The venue was a grand hall in the heart of Seoul with chandeliers that caught the light like frozen rain and white flowers arranged on every surface. The guest list had taken weeks to perfect. Journalists, investors, old money and new money sitting politely beside each other. Everyone who was anyone in Seoul had come tonight, and Sua stood in the center of it all in a red gown feeling like a woman completely beyond reach. She was laughing at something one of her friends said when the main doors opened. The room did not go loud. It went the other way. Conversations dropped mid-sentence. Glasses lowered. Bodies straightened without people realizing they were doing it. A quiet ripple moved through the entire hall from the entrance outward like something had shifted in the air itself. Ryan Han walked in. He wore dark and he walked slowly, and he did not look around the room the way people do when they want to be seen. He simply moved through the space like a man who had never once needed to announce himself and never would. And beside him, her hand resting lightly in the crook of his arm, was Mina Park. She wore deep midnight blue. No heavy jewelry. No performance. Just Mina. Head lifted. Shoulders back, eyes calm and clear and looking straight ahead. The woman with 1 kidney and a rooftop room and a notebook where she wrote about Thursday cats and early morning skies. She looked like she belonged in every room that had ever existed. People moved toward them. People who had known Sua for 10 years were suddenly finding reasons to cross the floor, warm smiles, careful greetings, hands extended toward Mina with a gentleness that had not been in the room a moment before. Sua watched it happen from across the hall. Her jaw tightened slowly. She set her glass down. Jehun saw Mina from near the far wall and went completely still. The color in his face changed. He did not move toward her. He did not move at all. He just stood there like a man who had just understood something very large and very late. Sua crossed the floor. She stopped in front of them and arranged her face into something that was meant to look like a smile. Her voice came out light and sharp at the same time. "I didn't realize the guest list had expanded." Ryan turned his gaze to her.
Slowly. Fully.
Like a door closing. The smile on Sua's face died before he even opened his mouth. Something in his eyes made her want to take a step back, and she hated that she felt it. He said, "The only person in this room I personally invited is standing beside me. I suggest you remember that." He did not raise his voice.
He did not need to.
Every word landed like something permanent. Sua stepped back. The crowd around them shifted and parted, and Ryan walked forward with Mina beside him, and the whole room made way without being asked. Mina walked through it all steady and quiet and radiant. She did not say a single word. She did not look back once. Everything ended quietly, the way real things always do. There was no single dramatic moment. No big announcement. Just a slow unwinding, like a thread that had been pulled too tight for too long, finally letting go. Jehun's company failed in stages. First the audit, then the contracts that did not renew, then the investors who stopped returning calls until stopping became the permanent answer. The apartment went next, then the car, then the carefully built life that had never really been built on anything solid to begin with. Sua filed for divorce the same week the last investor walked away. Jahun sent Mina a message on a Thursday night. It was very long. Pages of words, apology and explanation and regret all tangled together. He wrote about pressure and fear and making choices he could not take back. He wrote that he thought about the hospital every day, that he thought about her every day, that he was sorry in ways he did not have the right words for. Mina read every single word. Then she set her phone face down on the table.
Put the kettle on.
Made herself a cup of tea the way she liked it, not too strong, a little honey. Sat at her window and watched Seoul move below her in the late evening light. She never replied. Not because she was still angry, but because she had already said everything that needed to be said the day she poured him a glass of water and walked away. There was nothing left to add. Sua came to find her on a Wednesday afternoon outside the restaurant. No friends this time. No designer bag swinging from her arm. No performance. Just a woman standing on the pavement who looked, for the first time, exactly her age. Tired around the eyes. Something worn away that used to be hard. She said she was sorry. Her voice shook on the last word like it had cost her something real to get it out. Mina looked at her for a long, quiet moment. She did not smile. She did not say it was okay, because it was not okay, and she was done pretending things were smaller than they were. But she also felt something in her chest that was loose and light in a way it had not been for a long time. She nodded once. Just once. Not for Sua. For herself. Then she walked back inside. That evening Ryan asked her quietly, "What do you want me to do to them?"
Mina thought about it. Really thought about it.
Sat with the question the way she used to sit with her ramen at the window, slowly, honestly, without rushing toward an answer. Then she said, "Nothing. They already lost everything that mattered, and they did it all by themselves." Ryan looked at her for a long moment, the way he sometimes looked at her when he thought she could not see his face properly, like she was something he still could not fully believe was real. Later she stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse. Seoul spread out below her, golden and enormous and full of a million small lives all moving at once. The sky was that deep clear color it only got on cold nights when everything felt very far away and very close at the same time. She lifted her hand slowly and touched her scar. Not with grief. Not with shame. Not with the tight, awful feeling she used to carry every time she accidentally caught it in the mirror or felt a stranger's eyes drop to her side. With gratitude. Quiet and real and completely her own. She thought, this is what it cost me. Every single piece of it. The surgery and the envelope and the garbage bags and the cold alley behind the restaurant and the ramen at midnight and all the nights she pressed her hand against herself in the dark and said, "You are still here." Every single moment of it brought me here. I would not change one thing. Ryan came to stand behind her. He did not say anything. He just wrapped both arms around her slowly and held on. She leaned back into him and closed her eyes. Outside, Seoul burned bright and beautiful and endlessly alive. Inside that room, Mina Park put her hand over her scar one last time and felt nothing but peace. The moral lessons of she was a waitress. She gave him her kidney. He chose another woman. The mafia boss chose her instead. 1. Loving someone too much can cost you yourself. Mina gave everything she had, her money, her sleep, her health, and finally a piece of her own body. She loved so deeply that she forgot to keep something for herself. The lesson: real love should never ask you to disappear. If someone only grows bigger while you grow smaller, that is not love. That is loss wearing a familiar face. 2. How someone treats you in your weakest moment is who they really are. Jaehoon did not show his true character on a bad day. He showed it on the worst day of Mina's life, while she was still on a hospital bed, still stitched up, still recovering from saving him. The lesson: do not judge people by their words during good times. Watch what they do when it costs them something. That is the truth of who they are. 3. Dignity is something nobody can take from you without your permission. Sua mocked her. Jahan abandoned her. The whole world seemed to look through her. But Mina never stopped carrying herself with quiet respect. She never begged. She never broke in public. She never became ugly in her pain. The lesson: your dignity lives inside you, not in what people say about you. No humiliation is permanent unless you let it define you. For healing is not loud. It happens in small, quiet moments. Mina did not heal in one big dramatic scene. She healed in small rituals: ramen at midnight, a candle on the windowsill, a notebook full of small, beautiful things, one honest breath at a time. The lesson: do not wait for a big moment to start getting better. Healing begins in the smallest decisions: to eat, to rest, to notice something good, to tell yourself you are still here.